What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about a problem that I had with my Sega Genesis system and how I came to fix it. So first off, this is my Sega Genesis console I have, Model 1, the first edition. It says high definition graphics. Even has that exterior port in the back that was never used in the United States as far as I know. This one is actually missing the cover for the side port. I have it around here somewhere, but I have it missing because I was normally plugged in my Sega CD. Also has like a little ground plate on it. But yeah, one day about a month ago, I go to play a game on it. I think I was going to play Earthworm Jim, and I noticed this really horrible buzzing sound coming through the audio. Now it's like this bzzz. It was horrible. barely hear the sound. I'm like, oh crap, I hope there's not something wrong with my stereo or my hookups, because I got this thing going from out this into a matrix splitter switchboard, and then it goes to the FrameMeister, then to the stereo, whatnot. So I'm like, well, I hope I don't have something messed up. So one of the nice things about the Model 1 Sega Genesis is it has a headphone jack right here. So I just unplugged the jack I was using, plugged in some headphones, and sure enough, I could hear the buzzing really good out of the headphone jack. I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's just the headphone jack. I plug some just normal AV cables in the back, plug it directly into my TV. Sure enough, the bad audio is coming out of the back, bad audio is coming out of the headphone jack. Even a little bit of waviness onto the screen. In my sample video here, I don't think the waviness shows up that much, but it's there a little bit. But the sound was definitely the worst part of it. So did a little bit of searching online, and of course people were recommending replace your capacitors, replace the capacitors in the system, which I kind of figured that was the problem. But yeah, I went ahead and ordered a pack of capacitors, and I got them from console5.com. One guy in one of my Facebook friend groups recommended just going there and buying a set. So picked up a set. I was actually short 2 capacitors, had some extras on other ones. I might have just selected the wrong model, but I got about 95% of the capacitors in this thing replaced, except for like maybe 2 10 microfarad capacitors. Thought about doing like a little video of it, you know, like set up the camera and like going through the whole startup process and everything, but honestly I didn't feel like setting up the cameras. So I just kind of took some pictures here. Basically I desoldered this old capacitors, or first I drew a green X on each old capacitor so I wasn't reusing capacitors by accident, or all the new ones actually have a higher voltage tolerance, so that's good. But yeah, I was actually short 2 capacitors, so I was hoping, well, hopefully those don't cause a problem. Got it all hooked back up, got it all wired, plugged it in, and unfortunately I still had that audio buzzing. So I'm thinking to myself, oh crap, I hope one of those 2 capacitors I didn't replace was the problem. Problem was, it wasn't like a little bit less buzzing or anything like that. It was the exact same buzzing. There was like no improvement to anything. And I'm like, well, maybe something else in here is faulty. And I almost didn't feel like fiddling with it anymore. Like I thought about just like selling it on eBay as is and just buying a whole nother unit and just calling it a day. You know, because when you go through and desolder and, you know, replacing capacitors or working on stuff, it can be time consuming. You know, it was like a good 2 or 3 hours. And, you know, it's time can be money at times, and it's just easier to just buy another one and sell the one you got. But went online looking for some recommendations, and someone had recommended installing a low pass filter, I think it was called, or some kind of filter for the power supply. And I kind of thought about it a minute. I'm like, well, wait a minute, I didn't try a different power supply, which, for those who don't know, I have an associate's degree in digital systems technology, which is just a fancy way of saying I know some electronics. Hopefully my college instructors, one of them was also my high school teacher, is not watching this, because one of the main things they always hounded to me is, well, three things they would always like hound on us all the time. But one of them was, first rule of troubleshooting: always check your power supply. And here's the power cord. Here's the power plug, the power supply. When you plug this thing into your wall, you're basically, at least in the United States, you're getting 120 volts AC. You know, like the big, big sine wave. I'll probably show like a little cheap illustration or something like that. 120 volts RMS. One complete cycle is 60 hertz. If you hook that up to a like your typical power supply, which is supposed to be what's in here, like I'll show like a little anime or a little illustration here of your normal power supply. Just Google power supply, you'll get all sorts of different ones, but here's just a little basic one. Little schematic here. Here's like your AC plug. You get your 120 volts AC. AC means every 60 times a second, the voltage changes back and forth. Like one point will be positive, the other point will be negative, and then it'll switch negative and positive, and then it'll actually switch that 60 times a second. So that's why it's kind of a wave there. So basically, your voltage enters these 4 diodes in what's called a rectifier. So what these do is they point the direction of your voltage. So your plus and minus will always be the same points. So like whether whether this is plus and this is minus, or whether this is plus and this is minus, it's arranged in a way to where your positive charge is up here and your negative charge is down here. So kind of think like a water pump. And you have water pipes. You have 1 second you have water going this way, and then another second you have water going this way. Well, when water goes this way, these are arranged in a way where water only goes one way or the other way. And then when it switches, it's the same way. Water goes one way, but not the other way. So water is always going up. So kind of think of it like that way. So basically, your electrons are actually going from negative to positive, because the flow of electrons goes from negative to positive because the negative charge has more electrons. So your electrons are going this way, but even though it's now DC, your positive and negative are fixed points, you still have the waviness up and down. So you have a pulsating DC. Here you got your voltage regulation circuit, you got your regulator, and you got some resistors here so you can kind of adjust the voltage. But in this case, it's just a fixed voltage because these power supplies are rated at like 9.5 or 10 volts. Yeah, 10 volts. So I'm looking at the back of it now. So it's regulated at 10 volts. So it's basically at a fixed voltage. And then you have these capacitors here, which help filter out that voltage, so it helps change that pulsating DC into a smooth DC signal. So it's just like a straight voltage. And a lot of other power supplies, like when I built one back in college, about right here, they'll have kind of an inductor circuit. Think of it like a transformer. It's just a coil, but it's just a coil by itself. And that uses current flow properties or amp properties to help smooth out that voltage, that pulsating voltage even more so. So what probably happened in this power supply is one of these capacitors, probably a big one here, probably went out, so it was most likely sending a pulsating or a somewhat of a pulsating DC voltage to my Sega Genesis. So it's probably getting just enough to where it still powered all the circuitry and everything in it, but it was still something to where it ended up none of the circuitry, like the filters inside of the system, filtered that out, so you got the buzziness and a little bit of the wavy signal displayed on the screen. So yeah, so basically I got a couple spare power supplies. Like I just took the one from my Sega CD, plugged it into. I got a couple, like a drawer full somewhere I bought from a video game store. They had a bunch of them, and I just bought every one they had. So I swapped that in. The buzzing went away. The picture never looked better. So yeah, if you have any problems with buzzing, like an audio buzzing on your old consoles, switch your power plug, switch your power supply. That's the very first thing you should do. So 2 hours, I don't want to say wasted, but 2 hours to replace capacitors in this thing that I didn't need to do. But on the bright side, I have a Sega Genesis with almost all brand new capacitors, so that should hopefully last me a very long time. So yeah, if any of you guys have retro consoles out there, and you know they have like these stupid power bricks that you know for some reason they can't put in the middle, but yeah, replace them. If you get any signal noise in your TVs or whatnot and weren't there before, replace them. Be careful buying generic ones, because I bought a generic one for my Model 2 Sega Genesis. Kind of funny, you know, I want to fix this thing, but I have a Model 2 Genesis, but I enjoy playing the games on this instead of the Model 2. I just keep the Model 2 just to keep the my 32X plugged in. But yeah, I bought a generic one off of Amazon for my Model 2 Genesis, and the reviews on it was kind of 3 out of 5 stars. Every once in a while I would read a review and people were like, this fried my Sega Nomad, which kind of made me a little worried, but I went ahead and bought one anyway. But when I reviewed it, I measured the thing. I measured the voltage off of it, and these things are rated for around 10 volts, and that thing was putting out 18 volts. And I'm like, well, no wonder it's frying people's Sega Nomads, because it's putting out a lot more voltage. So I left it a very low review and a screenshot, and yeah, do not buy generic ones unless you know it's a good one. So yeah, that's my advice to you guys. Real simple video, nothing complicated. Hope you enjoy it. Please leave a comment down below on what you think. Give it a like, and see you guys later. Thank you for coming to my video. If you would like to help my channel grow, please like and subscribe, and please click on this little bell icon so you never miss a future video.